Right, Christine, do we have any apologies?
Chair, I only have 2 apologies, one from Martin Webb from NHS Lanarkshire and from Laura Campbell from Who Cares Scotland.
Right, grand. Now, the minute of the previous meeting, which was on the 1st of March 2022, is there somebody that would propose the meeting, the minute for that meeting? Anybody? Richard Truesdale, seconder?
I'm happy to if I can.
Yeah, thank you very much, Heather. Is there any matters arising from that minute that's not on the agenda? Anybody got anything? Right, there's various progress things that I have. Heather, on community matters, on the, what do you call it, the Banton element, you said that you were working towards a solution to the land ownership. Any further progress on that? Do you know? No. And no, Nicole's not here that I can see. That right. And item 5 was the speed limits. And again, Nicole's not here to be able to give us an update on that. Lights are already on it, on the agenda. And I see Inspector Susan Ray joined the meeting. Susan, are you able to give us an update on the Operation Moto X? Just as quickly as just part of a minute.
Evening, everyone. Bill, I would need to come back to you on that. I know that my colleagues across the sort of community policing environment were presenting to their boards during the sort of last round. I haven't actually, one of my colleagues is sort of leading on the operation and I've not had an update just as to how they're getting on with the sort of funding of that. The hope was that it was going to kind of be in place kind of midsummer time, but I can certainly check that and get back to you.
Yeah, just so that it doesn't disappear off the minute sort of thing. Right, thank you very much.
Yeah, Matt Costello has his hand up.
Sorry, Matt, on you go.
Well, sure, thanks. Just to update on that, and just relate to what Susan's talking about there. There's discussions ongoing between the council and the police in relation to the purchase of the appropriate machinery for the Moto X project going forward. And that's something we'll report back again to the community board once we know more about that in terms of taking that forward. But all the community boards have approved in principle support for that.
That's good. Thanks very much, Matt.
Councillor Brand McVeigh has a hand up, Chair.
Oh, Heather, yes.
Bill, I know I cannot reference where I got this from, but I know it is real. I definitely did not make this up. I know that there was action in Strathclyde Country Park and there was a couple of bikes seized, and I think driving with dangerous notices actions given to one underage and one on-age driver of those bikes in Strathclyde Park. For the life of me, I can't remember where I got that information from, but I know that I did get it. It may well have been the Police Scotland Twitter. So the rollout of actually connecting with people who are using public land with the bikes inappropriately is certainly an action in the authority, which is great to hear. But I'm sure as we get a full update, that'll be part of it.
Yeah, Thanks very much, Heather. Might be something that Susan, you could pick up and let us know in due course.
Yeah, I can certainly feed back into the group at the next meeting.
Aye. Is there anything else on the minute? I don't see any other hands up. Right. Oh,
Chair,
welcome, Nicole.
sorry, I was going to say that, Chair, just to let you know that Nicole's on the meeting.
Right. Just hold on a second. Nicole, you were going to, based on the previous minute and George Fru's element about the lighting and Shawine Road and flooding coming from there, you were going to ask your team to look into the 3 points raised. Any progress or anything to update us on that?
Yeah, that's correct. My understanding is that the team have progressed all three. I'll be honest, I don't have a written update at this point, but I'm happy to seek one for the board chair following the meeting.
Yeah.
And my apologies, I've had to join my phone. My laptop is not finding the Wi-Fi after a day in Glasgow today.
That's okay. That's all right. And that's fine. And the 20 mile an hour speed limits at the school, Nicole, is what stage is that at? Have we got any idea of an implementation date?
It's too early yet for an implementation date. The schools in Kilsyth are in phase 2 of the rollout. The team are just completing phase 1. But the end date we're looking at for full phase 2 implementation will be by August next year. Once I have an updated timescale in terms of specific schools, then of course I'll give you an update for the schools in Kilsyth. But at this point, they're just completing the phase 1 schools, which were the schools that already had 20 mile an hour signs in place, and they were just being updated.
Grand. Thanks very much, Nicole. The item 3A there, the flood protection update, Nicole, is that you or is one of the engineers?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I think I'm finally on WebEx. Stuart.
It's Stuart.
Chair.
Yeah.
Right.
So I'm assuming you can hear me. I'm getting a bit of feedback from somebody.
I think we'll get DJ Nicole Patterson in the mix here.
So I prepared a short presentation. I believe at the last community board meeting in December, there was a commitment to update yourselves on various progress with the various works and actions that were undertaken to help with flood mitigation around Kilsyth. We're aware this is a major problem for the people of Kilsyth, and it's the top of our priority list to deal with these issues. So if you just bear with me, I'll attempt to share my screen. Seem to be a bit slow. One thing I'll make you aware of is that I've been told my internet connection has not been the best lately. So if there are issues, let me know and I'll try and do something to sort it out.
Yeah, not a problem, Stuart.
Right, can you all see the title of that presentation?
Yeah. Yes.
That's up. Okay. Yep, so I'm Stuart Bard, Engineer Manager at North Lanarkshire Council. Like we said earlier, part of my remit is the water management team. Also on the call is John Scott, who is team leader of the water management team, to assist in any questions. If you don't mind, I can go through this presentation and I'll take any questions at the end.
Okay.
So, just to kind of summarise the contents of this presentation, I'll split it into 3 sections. One is the actions complete to date. So that's a recap of the flood protection study preferred option. which I believe Jim Maguire outlined at the previous board meeting in December. I'm going to touch on the Gaussian Footbridge closure, because I know there's been inquiries about that. And really for Ebroch Burn clearance works have been carried out to date. The further actions that are in progress are further clearance of the Ebroch Burn and the Memorandum of Understanding with Scottish Canals to progress the preferred flood study protection option. The next steps thereafter include appointment of design and build contractor to deliver the flood protection study preferred option. In conjunction with that, we will commission a consultant to carry out the design study with a cost estimate. Thereafter, it's development of a project execution plan, securing funding for the budget, and agreeing a cost sharing agreement with Scottish Canals, and then thereafter project delivery. So I'll just run through those. So on the screen is the flood map for the existing situation in Kilsyth for the 1 in 100 year flood event. Now, what's shown here is the extent of flooding in a range between blue and yellow from 0.1 metres to up to 0.8 metres. And as no surprise to any of you, Stirling Road is heavily flooded, along with a large proportion of the Burn Green Park area in a 1 in 100 year event. What happens is we have the two water courses, the Kilsyth Burn, which then becomes the Ebroch Burn, and on the east side, and the Garrow Burn on the west. Majority of flooding originating from the Kilsyth Burn as it traverses Stirling Road. Now, within the Kilsyth estate is the canal feeder, also known as the Mill Lade, which is a Scottish Canals asset, which connects the Garrow Burn and the Kilsyth Burn in the west towards the Banton Loch or Townhead Reservoir in the east, which isn't quite shown in this map here, but it's off to the east of the image. Now, that's a Scottish Canals asset which allows them to abstract water from each of these water courses to top up their reservoir, which in turn feeds the Forth and Clyde Canal. And it's an important asset for them because they need to keep the Forth and Clyde Canal topped up and operational. Now, next slide is the long-term solution, 1 in 100 year flood event. Now you can see that the flood extent has practically disappeared along Stirling Road and the Burn Green Park area. And there's just some localised overspill down at the Green Park. You can see my cursor down here, and also at the Kilsyth. So critically, there's no modelled flooding affecting property within the 1 in 100 year event with our long-term solution in place. Now, the long-term solution is essentially, and again, this is just a recap of what was previously discussed, is to install 2 flow control devices at the Kilsyth Burn in Mill Lade Junction and the Garrow Burn in Mill Lade. What's in place at the moment is penstocks at the Garrow Burn, manually operated, and at the Kilsyth Burn. And what Scottish Canals do is they manually send somebody out there to open up, I believe, just the Garrow Burn penstock to draw water along the Mill Lade to top up the reservoir. I'm not entirely sure if the Kilsyth Burn penstock is even in operation, judging by the condition of it. Now, what we propose to do in conjunction with Scottish Canals, bearing in mind that it is their asset, is to replace those 2 penstocks with remotely controlled sluice gates or valves. That includes telemetry linked to various sensors within the Mill Lade and the burns that can actively monitor flows in real time to divert the required amount of water from the Kilsyth or Garrow Burn into the reservoir to prevent the flood water spilling over and further downstream the Ebroch Burn or Garrow Burn along Stirling Road and the Burn Green Park area and beyond. Now, we are limited by the amount we can abstract. partly by the channel cross-section of the mill lead, and partly by the overspill capacity of the Banton Loch reservoir. Now, it's obviously critical we don't exceed that, because we could be, well, we certainly would be creating potentially catastrophic flood scenarios elsewhere. But what we have modelled is that we can provide a 1 in 100 year protection to Kilsyth with this solution in place. Now, just to touch on the Gaussian Footbridge, you'll know that be aware that this is currently closed to the public. What's essentially happened is that concerns were raised about the condition of the decking boards and the like. A bridge inspection was carried out, and it was found that there is quite substantial rot decay, not only to the decking boards, but the parapet vertical upstands there that connect to the edge beams of the deck, and also the edge beams themselves. And I believe that is primarily due to the constantly damp conditions that are there. Not only is the condition of the bridge a concern, but as you can see in this picture, it's quite a constriction of the mill lead, which is where we're proposing to divert our water up to 6 cubic metres per second through the mill lead and into Banton Loch reservoir to alleviate the flood problems further downstream in Kilsyth. Therefore, there is a question mark over, it's highly likely this bridge will need to be removed as part of the works to cover the flood protection to Kilsyth. One of the main actions complete to date, and this is an image of sitting on top of Lochen Road on the culvert or bridge over the watercourse, with Stirling Road on the left hand of the image there, before and after shots of clearance works. Now, what has happened during the 2020 flood, I believe, was that Stirling Road flooded and the fire brigade knocked down the masonry wall that you can just about see at the left-hand side of this after image, to allow the water to overflow and spill into the watercourse, because what was in place was worse than what's even shown in this before picture. This was taken late winter, but early winter time. This was heavily vegetated, and the silt build-up at what was originally the design overspill of that fence there was such that no water was escaping into the watercourse in any flood event. So what we've done is go in and clear, this is Don Holmes' land, but with their agreement we went in and cleared all the vegetation, removed the silt so the water could spill through its intended location. The brick wall has been repaired, but there is now a flow direction into the watercourse. Not only that, but you can see the silt build-up from what was original is substantial in the watercourse. We've at least doubled the capacity of the stream to carry water. This is an image from the westernmost side of the same culvert, and you can see there was islands of silt in the inlet, this substantial island on the outlet at this bad bend. That's all been removed, allowing water to flow freely. Similarly, as we travel downstream, and even before we get to this point, I believe this is the opposite the nursery, we've cleared all the vegetation to the northern portion of that watercourse in the Burn Green Park area. You can see in the before image the amount of vegetation that was there. What happens in a flood event is this overtops and collects all the debris, the branches, the vegetation, and then that flows back into the burn and deposited within the burn, and is then inevitably clogged up trash screens and contributes to the silt build-up within the invert of the watercourse. Just some more images here showing opposite the nursery, I believe, as well, the amount of vegetation we've cleared. Now that was all done under the clearance within the watercourse up at the Loughin Road was done under a SEPA car licence, and what we're proposing to do is to continue the silt, removal of the silt build-up within the invert of the watercourse as you go downstream towards the confluence with Garrow Burn. So you can see here, this is existing photographs of the amount of silt that's within the burn, which hence is depleting the capacity of that watercourse to take water. Now, it's not a simple process, but we are undertaking those works. They are scheduled in for commencing the 20th of June. What we've done in advance is obtain a SEPA car licence. We have an ecologist going out at the end of the week to do a survey for any protected mammals and the like before we can go in, although there's no signs of anything that's going to impede that. And we are carrying out a fish rescue in advance as well. So these are all conditions of the SEPA car licence, and it all has to be done out with fish spawning season as well. So that's why that has had to wait until now to progress. But those works will be carried out very soon, and we're anticipating about 200 tonnes of silt to be removed there, and that will be in addition to the approximately 500 tonnes that was removed upstream at the Loughin Road area. The other main action in progress at the moment is progressing the Memorandum of Understanding with Scottish Canals. Now, this is a document that essentially outlines the commitment of both parties to deliver this project and outlines responsibilities and lines of communication between the parties to progress not only the works to deliver this project, but the operation and maintenance of the project, of the scheme going in 40 years into the future. So it takes a bit of input from both sides, and we are at an advanced stage with this. We have been in a few discussions with the head of engineering at Scottish Canals and pleased to report that they are very enthusiastic about the project and have promised to commit to it. The Memorandum of Understanding has been agreed between officers at NLC and Scottish Canals. It just essentially has to be signed off by the respective legal departments. So once that is done, that can allow us to progress with the remainder of getting the preferred solution in place. So final slide here, I've outlined indicative milestone dates for delivery of this project and the works that we're currently undertaking. Now, the clearance of the Ebroch Burn, like I said, is starting imminently. Anticipating to be complete by July, sorry. The MOU legal review and executive sign-off, we're saying summer 2022. Now that's essentially been agreed between officers, like I say. It just has to go through the relative solicitors. The next stage is appointment of the design and build contractor. Now, because this is a Scottish Canals asset that we are utilising for flood protection measures, and it's got advantages for them as well in terms of their Smart Canals initiative, because it allows Scottish Canals to draw down water from the watercourses more efficiently without physical presence on site, and potentially allowing them to top up their reservoir more rapidly if conditions allow it, without adversely affecting flows in the watercourse to such a level that affects fishing. Like the appointment of the design and build contractor we're anticipating will be carried out by Scottish Canals, and their indicative timeframe is autumn 2022. In conjunction with that, NLC have agreed that we will lead with the commission of the design consultant to progress the design of the preferred option, because bear in mind this hasn't been designed yet, it's just been identified as a solution at high level to divert water from each of these watercourses through the lade into the reservoir. So the actual design and mechanics of that scheme still need fleshed out. And the preliminary design, also known as the front end engineering design, basically is a preliminary design with a cost estimate plus anticipated to be plus or minus 30% of the actual outturn cost. So it's not until we conduct that that we get a better idea of what the cost of the scheme is going to be. Following that, and that design being complete March 2023 is the target there with the cost estimate. Following that is the project execution plan. Sources of funding will need to be identified at that point, a budget set and a cost sharing agreement between NLC and Scottish Canals being put in place. And that itself is no small task. So the target for that is next financial year, 23 to 24. The final project delivery works on site being March 24 to March 25. That brings me to the end of my presentation. What I'll do is I'll just stop sharing my screen for a moment and please invite any questions.
Thank you very much, Stuart. That was fascinating. Alan?
Yeah, a couple of points. With regard to the wooden bridge in Kilsyth, I take it the idea is to take away the piers.
Like I said, the issue with the timber footbridge, which essentially goes from the curling pond car park to the play area, is that it's not safe for use. Now, we have looked at repair options, which would essentially be redeck, for short-term repair only, would be to redeck the bridge and replace the parapets to make it safe. But with the issue of it being a constriction to the flood protection measure, it's basically highly likely that's going to need to be removed to allow the preferred option to take place.
Have you checked the stone bridges? The arches and stone bridges are quite low.
Yeah.
Is there a possibility that they're going to present a problem to the plan?
Now, we won't know a definitive answer until the design is progressed through the front end engineering design, which will certainly, I would like to highlight, if there are any constrictions that are going to be an impedance, what do we need to do about that? Or is there possibility for, does that affect the 6 cubic metres per second flow rate that's needed to provide the 1 in 100 year capacity? Or is the water naturally going to overtop and travel back into the lade on the opposite side with that 6 cubic metres? It's a bit of an unknown at the moment until the design is fleshed out and it's further analysed. What I will say is, having had a look down that mill lade, is that footbridge is clearly the tightest construction point. The masonry arch bridge and the like is much of a constriction as that, but we won't know the answer if we need to modify those structures or if the flow needs to be reduced potentially until the design is progressed. My hope is that it won't change substantially much from the 6 cubic metres per second if the structures are allowed to remain in place. But I think it's quite obvious that the wooden footbridge is a particularly high constriction, and given its condition, it just doesn't seem like best value to repair that in the short term, considering it's highly likely to be removed to deliver this flood protection scheme.
Finally, have you had a look at the retaining wall in East Burnside Street? It's beginning to collapse into the burn. Part of it is undermined, and I imagine that if we get a lot of heavy flow down there in the near future, that part of that wall is going to come in. Has that been checked?
It's not something I'm aware of off the top of my head. East Burnside Street, you say?
Yes, passes John Jarvis Square where the sheltered houses are.
Right. I'm just actually having a quick look. That's downstream of the confluence with the Garrel and the Ebroch burn.
It is, yes. Just before the burn goes underneath the main street.
Yeah, if it's not already been inspected, we'll certainly have a look at it. If I don't know if John has any awareness of that. If not, we can certainly add it to our inspection schedule and have a look at it very soon.
Okay.
It's not on my radar at the moment, but we can certainly go out and have a look at it.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks very much, Stuart and John and Alan. Yes, the bit that Alan was referring to there, there's part of the retaining walls collapsing, part of the lintel that runs along the top of the wall is one piece at this stage has fallen into the burn someplace,
right?
And goodness knows where it is now. But there's an alteration in the paving levels as well, because of subsidence in the wall. But if you have a look at it, you'll see the whole picture there. Yep. Any other question? Sorry.
Sorry. So the masonry of the wall is falling away. You're saying, and the coping stone.
Yes.
So the head of the wall is in the past fell away. Is the railing intact?
The railing is still intact. Yes. Yeah. I think the railing is the railing's holding on quite a number of the popes at this stage.
Yeah. We'll certainly have a look at that and assess it and remediate as necessary.
If you want to meet or have an engineer, I can meet them at any time down there and just simplify it for them. Yeah. Grant?
Okay, thanks.
Thanks very much, Stuart. Any other questions to Stuart?
Yeah, Tracy.
Tracy?
No, sorry, it was a mistake.
Oh, right, Tracy. Anybody else? Right. Okay, thanks very much for your time, Stuart and John, and you're welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting if you so wish, but I'm sure there's probably a cup of coffee and some food, a higher priority. Right.
Well, thanks very much, and yeah, nice to meet you, and I'm sure we'll keep in touch regarding progress as time progresses.
Yep.
Yep. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Right.
Yes.
Right. Next item, Community Matters, item 4A, Fair Trade. James Slavin about Fair Trade Steering Group. James, would you like to speak to your paper?
Yes, indeed. Thanks very much, Chair. Thank you to all of you for the opportunity to take a couple of minutes and have a wee sort of focus on fair trade matters. As Chair had just said there, I'm a member of the North Lanarkshire Fair Trade Steering Group. We recently achieved a fair trade zone status. You will probably be aware, just about 2 years ago, just before the pandemic. And it's a fairly large group, and so really, you know, I'm here kind of representing that group. Just a wee word about, you know, sort of fair trade itself. It means different things to different people, but basically, it's about breaking the cycle of poverty globally, as well as providing justice in the food chain, which is something that we're all interested, I think, up to a point as far as we can be. I spoke last week at the Cumbernauld Community Board as well and made the same appeal there. The idea being that obviously that Cumbernauld at some point in the future makes an application to be a fair trade town. And the application form is in your papers, and I'm quite happy to take questions in a few moments about that if you have any. So what I'm hoping as a result of speaking to yourselves tonight is that we can get the ball rolling in some forum to make an application for fair trade status for Kilsyth, Roy, Banton or Queenieburn, just depending on what the interest is in each of those particular areas. I'll be honest and say I know an awful lot more about Cumbernauld and Croy and Kilsyth up to a point than I do about Banton and Queenieburn. So as you know, locally we've got Airdrie Fair Trade Town, Motherwell Fair Trade Town. They've had that status for quite a while. Scotland itself became a fair trade nation 4 years ago, and in our area locally we've got many schools and places of worship that have the fair trade status. So the way I see it is that there's a bit missing, and that's when the idea of fair trade town status or village for the places that I've just mentioned. And I put it to the Cumbernauld Board last week as well. I wondered whether it had come up previously as an agenda item or in any shape or form, or it could be that it's just not, it just hasn't appeared before. I'll maybe stop at this point, and if you've got any questions about anything I've said, I'll be happy to take them.
Thank you, James. It's very interesting. I didn't even realise that there was such a thing other than fair trade in the shops. Buying fair trade bananas or whatever. But Heather, you have a question?
I do. Hi, James. Good to see you again. I attended a few of the meetings that were hosted up in Croy Parish Hall a couple of years ago as we were progressing towards the North Lanarkshire Fair Trade Zone. And I suppose it's round about that my question is based. We have a number of schools that are fair trade in this area, a number of church parishes that undertake that. We also have a school curriculum that supports it. So what distinguishes the development of the town element from that of the zone of the authority? Because I'm just wondering whether actually we need to charge the education officers who have played a key role or the economic development officers who have played a key role at the North Lanarkshire level to just what more do we need to do to get it locally, or is this an extension? Because I know that one of the things in the action plan is we need to put a motion to council. As a councillor, I don't believe that's necessary because as a council we've already passed that motion for the zone. So I'm just wondering, how do we distinguish the local action from that the authority has already agreed to and committed to?
Yeah, you're quite right. Number one has been ticked already, that box, and the way I see it is, it's about doing a kind of audit, if you like, of the schools and the places of worship and the workplaces as well that may also have fair trade status. And I just feel as if, especially just now, although North Lanarkshire managed to get fair trade zone status, as yet we haven't. That doesn't appear on any road signs coming in and out of the North Lanarkshire area at the moment. And I always think it's eye-catching, when you're going in and out of Airdrie, Motherwell and so on. It's a fantastic way of reminding people locally, that we can, that if we're in a position to, to do a little bit more. But I would see it as it's collaborating more with the organisations that are on the road already. And obviously, it was put to me last week that it would be one or two people doing the donkey work to get this process started, and I appreciate that that's what it would be. People agreeing that they're going to give up a bit of time to do the audit, to find out where the fair trade schools are, fair trade workplaces, and then sort of gradually move it forward. It'll be a slow process, I appreciate that.
Thank you, James. Any more questions to James? We'll look at Heather.
Councillor, you're on mute.
The fair trade signs for Airdrie and Motherwell are the historical ones, so there's not been new ones, and I would imagine that part of this will be that there's a resource implication of purchasing new road signage. Because we've found that with requests for like brown signs for heritage elements and things like that, and at times I'm going to be supposed to say sometimes roads don't like additional signs at the side of the road, and I'll happily engage in discussion with that with Nicole at any point. It would be worth, and education already know who's doing work on this, so I think it's a direct question to ask the locality. Is that something that could be taken as an action from the Community Matters team to ask education what progress there has been across each of the community board areas, because there is no point in volunteers or myself taking on that work if officers already know the answer to some of these questions. And that would mean we could deploy our efforts to the bits of the things that we don't know, like contacting the parishes or, you know, the businesses.
Matt, would you respond to that one, or is it Christine?
I think Christine was going to come in there, Chair, on that.
Right, okay. Right, Christine?
Thanks, Chair. All I was going to say was that our team can offer support to James in terms of that application process for fair trade. Do you know, we're happy to support you in that, James, and other people that are interested in kind of being involved in that. Thanks.
Right, thank you very much. Any further questions or observations to James? Nothing? Right. Thank you very much, James, for giving us your time and explaining that. And I'm sure that from the Kilsyth area, we will be in touch again and just see where we can go with this. And I'm sure that if we can become Kilsyth Fair Trade Town, we can persuade Nicole to find a tiny little sign someplace. Oh, sorry, it's 3 signs we need. Thanks very much, James. You're welcome to stay and watch the rest of the meeting if you so wish, or go and enjoy that cup of coffee that's waiting on you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 5, local priorities. Christine, you're going to speak about the LOIP subgroups.
Thanks, Chair. I just wanted to kind of start off by saying this section of the agenda is new to people that have been to the board previously. And the purpose of this section is to ensure that there's a focus on providing updates on progress in terms of the LOIP priorities that have been identified within the Kilsyth area. As you'll be aware, the Kilsyth LOIP was developed following a wider engagement process to identify key priorities for Kilsyth. And a number of the people around the table tonight have been involved in that process, which has been great. 7 priorities, you'll have seen that on the agenda that was circulated. 7 priorities have been identified through the LOIP in the Kilsyth area. Youth engagement, digital inclusion, targeted action with identified communities, food and financial insecurity, health and wellbeing, improved environment with a focus in the town centre, and public and community transport. So that is the key focus for the local outcome improvement plan for Kilsyth, which a number of you will be well aware of. I wanted to say that myself and Irene Lester, who's on the call, who's taking the notes tonight, so she'll not be saying too much. We're happy to work in partnership with those who have showed an interest in being involved in taking forward the actions to achieve the address the priorities within Kilsyth. I understand through kind of conversations that a couple of the subgroups have actually now have local groups and organisations who are willing to take the lead on some of the subgroups. So understand that Croy Community Hub and Friends of Kilsyth are keen to be involved in taking forward the food and financial insecurity and health and wellbeing subgroups, which is great. And we'll be in contact shortly to kind of discuss how that is kind of taken forward and give you support in that. Also understand that Alan is involved and is keen to lead on the community transport subgroup through the community forum, which is also great. So again, we'll be in contact with you to kind of look at that and provide as much support as we can. Certainly, I meant to also say that there's currently 2 reps from this board on the NL Digital subgroup as well, which is great. Obviously, that's one of the priorities, is a bit linking in digital inclusion. So that's really important as well. The process obviously is still at an early stage, but we've got lots of time to kind of develop this, but we want to make sure that going forward, there'll be updates, regular updates on progress will come to the community board to make sure that you're all aware of how things are progressing in terms of the actions that have been identified. we propose to circulate an email to board members, because there's still an opportunity to be involved in that process if you haven't been involved up to now. If you are interested, or I would ask you to think about or to consider your interests, your skills and experiences you have in relation to the priorities that I've mentioned. I know, for example, we'll have people on the group who are kind of youth orientated and are working with young people who might well be interested in being involved in the youth subgroup. There's people, again, I know I mentioned Alan there about the community transport. There might be people in the board or wider groups and organisations that have got an interest or experience in that as well. So I'm hoping that we'll circulate an email if people are interested in being involved further to let us know, and then we'll get in contact with you to discuss that further. If you don't know much about the Lloyd process and want to find out more as well, please send us an email. Myself and Irene can send you our kind of contact details, or otherwise send information to us through Community Matters. That would be really helpful. Moving forward, we'd be expecting that the subgroups would meet in between community board meetings, like I said, so that we can provide an update at the meetings on kind of progress that has been made in between the meeting times. And really that's all I wanted to say, Chair, just now. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Christine. If I could maybe add on to what Christine has explained there, youth engagement, Robert Sloan, you've agreed to lead that one as well, along with your team, and get involved in that. And the other two, the targeted action and the improved environment with focus in the town centre, etc., that's being led by Kilsyth Community Council. Yes. And just emphasising the element of the digital inclusion, there's two of us involved in that, but each of these subgroups will have their own digital requirements that will feed into the two reps that go and attend the digital inclusion one. The digital inclusion is a North Lanarkshire wide subgroup. It's not individual to specific areas, it's North Lanarkshire wide. Robert?
Just to clarify, Bill, I'm certainly on the youth engagement subgroup within the LOIP. I don't have a recollection of agreeing to head it up. I knew at the last kind of LOIP meeting, I raised the question of whether it was right and proper, whether a council official led up a subgroup, given that my understanding with the LOIPs was it was community-led, and I was waiting for an answer back for that. So that was the position. I have no real problems doing it, or no real issues of doing it, but I just raised that question. My understanding it was to be community-led, so just clarification there.
Thanks very much, Robert. We'll look into that along with Christine.
Chair, if it's okay, I can maybe answer that. We would prefer, and I think it's a good point that you raised, Robert, that it's a community group or organisation that takes the lead on that, with our support in terms of the council and our other partners. So, but we'll be able to kind of discuss that separately to the meeting, Bill, if that's okay.
Yes, we'll work together to locate a community group that will take the lead on that one. Thanks very much, Christine, and thanks for that, Robert. Right. Any questions regarding the LOIP subgroups? Nope. Right. Item 6, local development investment. Christine, you're going to give us an update on that.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. This section of the agenda is an opportunity, provides an opportunity for community groups, organisations and partners to provide updates about local engagement that's taking place and any funding opportunities that are available to local groups and community groups and organisations. I don't have any update tonight on in terms of engagement that's taking place, but I do understand there'll be engagement taking place around about some of the LDP projects and things like that. There's a lot of developments locally, so these are the kind of things that will be discussed in future at this point in the agenda. In terms of funding opportunities, if it's okay, Chair, if I can pass on to Irene Lester. Irene, to just give a wee quick
Yes.
update on funding opportunities.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Irene.
My Wi-Fi's playing up tonight. There's a couple of funding sources that I can let the group know of tonight, and the first one is the NL recovery application process. That will be open for applications in the forthcoming weeks. That's an opportunity for local groups and organisations to apply for funding up to the cost of £4,000 for environmental projects, for example, community litter picks or community cleanups. So as soon as we get further information about that, we'll certainly share that with the board members. The other funding source is through the Health and Social Care Consortium. That's known locally as the Community Solutions Project. It's made up by multi-agencies, and they are awarded £30,000 per year for local groups and organisations to apply through. There's no deadlines for applications, it's a rolling programme, but there is specific criteria. So if anybody on the call would like to know any further information, send me an email and I'd be happy to send you the application form and also alert you to what the criteria is to apply for that funding. It's not a general fund, it is around about the health and social care of individuals. Councillor Jones, I think you were up first.
I'm not sure who was up first, but it would be helpful if you actually said you didn't wait and people come to you, in particular local elected members. I probably in the last week have spoke to 7 different groups about issues, and some of them, if I've got an application form there and then, I can sit down and help them fill them in. I've helped lots of community groups fill in and written to a community grant to a bidder forum. So I think if you could send, at the very least, circulate it to elected members and people like Bill, who is involved in 250 groups, I think.
Yeah, Councillor, I certainly take on board what you're saying. I'd be happy to circulate that application. But as probably everybody's aware, I'm new to the Kilsyth area, so I'm still kind of finding my feet. That's not an excuse though, but that's just a reason. But also to let you know, the council is only one of the partner agencies within that consortium. We're not the lead organisation, that's CASE, and it's Susan Drummond. Not that I'm not putting the, I'm not putting the responsibility onto Susan. My responsibility is to the community board members, but I'd be happy to share that application and the process. And if any of the groups that any are supporting need a wee bit more information, I'd be happy to help for that as well, Councillor.
Heather?
Predominantly, it's been asked and answered. I think this is a piece of funding that community organisations will be very interested in, and I think if it went to the mailing list of the community board, it would be really helpful.
Will do, yep.
I would agree with that, and I will fire an email off to you, Irene, for that detail ASAP.
No problem at all.
Okay. Any questions to Irene? Any further questions? Anything else you want to say, Irene? You okay?
Oh, thanks. Yep, thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Irene.
You're very...
The standing agenda items, Community Champions update. Nicole?
Thank you very much, Chair. I will issue my apologies again for earlier. I shouldn't blame the IT, but it definitely wasn't the human at the end of it. So my apologies for the DJ effect that you all experienced. In terms of a community champion update, Chair, whilst there is much going on across the council area, and we've taken a new approach to ensuring that we have collective updates, other than, of course, that which all the board members will be aware, that the fact we've had local government elections and you have your newly elected members, and at least 2 of them returning with us tonight. I suppose the key information from across the council for Kilsyth is the opening, and I'm pleased to say the use of the Brecon Garrow by local residents and visitors. Unfortunately, as we've discussed, Chair, and I'm sure members of the board are aware, there has been some vandalism of that site since its opening, which is more than unfortunate given the multi-million-pound investment in the site. However, in the main, the feedback which we're getting is it's proven very quickly to become a very valuable site to local people, and I know that very many people are getting a great deal of enjoyment from it, so that's absolutely fantastic. Again, you've had the update from Stuart, John and the team in terms of the work that we continue to undertake in terms of the short-term clearance of the Ebroch, which will be kept under control now, and obviously the longer-term work which we're doing to work with Scottish Canals to develop a longer-term smart canal solution. Other than that, for the Kilsyth area, there aren't further updates from me, Chair. Happy to take any questions as always.
Thank you, Nicole. Any questions to Nicole? No. It's just very interesting, Nicole, on the damage that's been occurring down at Dumbreck, etc. I was down that way earlier on, in fact, first thing this morning, 9:30, and was informed of a car that gained access onto one of the footpaths on the north side of the burn by going through the sports field. And when a council van appeared, the driver jumped into the car and drove into the marsh area and then went right around the footpaths and come out and up the Garrow Road. So obviously there are many people around, and there's already been people identified and spoken to about their vehicles going into the marsh area. So we would just ask everybody, keep your eye out and report anything in that line to the council or to the police. But if there's no questions to, oh, right, Alan? Sorry, Nicole, could you answer? You want to come in there? I'll come back to you, Alan.
Apologies, Alan, for sneaking in. Chair, it was simply on that point. Obviously, there are, because the bollards, for example, have been removed for some individuals to gain access, not obviously via the football pitch, that's new and even more innovative. But the team obviously are looking for new barriers, I'll say, bollards or whatever form they take to try and prevent such access. But I do want to emphasise, I am conscious that the vast majority of people are using the site exactly as imagined and gaining great benefit from it. But unfortunately, as ever, a small minority of individuals are using it improperly and unfortunately damaging the asset for a great cross-section of the community.
Well, where that incident occurred, we've agreed with your department, reps in your department, to carry out tree planting, and there'll be trees put in there in the next few weeks, and that hopefully will help stop traffic going into that part of the marsh. Alan?
It's just to mention that there's an excellent article in the latest edition of the Kelvin Valley News outlining the development of Dumbreck Marsh, and I would commend it to anyone who hasn't read it yet.
Thank you, Alan. Yes. Right, nothing else for Nicole. The local development programme, the LDP, Matt.
Thanks, Chair. The report was distributed in relation to the local development programme. It's just to give an update on a couple of areas within there. We've kind of upscaled a bit in relation to the project proposal forums process that we have in place now for that, and we're really keen for groups to come forward and identify potential projects that they'd be interested in taking forward through the LDP, and we'll happily link in with groups to provide support to complete the necessary paperwork, etc., for that, to allow us to look at the necessary criteria to carry out feasibility assessments, etc. Also, I'm talking about new projects generally, but other ones that are on the books at the moment. We're really keen to take some of these forward as we can in future years. We want to pick up on that, and IRI will linking in closely with local community groups about the projects we have in our early years for the next years of the LDP going forward. To update you briefly on the ones for the last financial year, you're aware the funding was devoted to CCTV, and I'm glad to be able to say today that there's 2 cameras just today became operational in the archway in Kilsyth Town Centre. So they've actually just came on board today, we're going with the group in the CCTV monitoring centre. I'll be watching that closely to see how that is, and we'll keep an eye on that. And it'll add to the issues that we had in that area before, and hopefully support the activity of partners and police and the work that Robert's doing down there as well on that. So that's good in relation to that. The remainder of that project should be completed over the next few weeks, as well as we've identified. And as we've dealt with the issue in relation to tender, etc., for the projects, and the work will go forward on that as well. So I'm happy to take any questions, Chair, in relation to the LDP.
Thank you very much, Matt. Any questions to Matt on that report? Well, I've got one question, Matt. You might not be able to answer it. When are we going to get some more money? What about tripling the budget? No?
Well, we're always looking for more money, Chair, and we recognise that the budget for Kilsyth isn't particularly huge. It is calculated in the pro rata basis, similar to every other community board. But we certainly we're happy, and we will work with groups to try and identify external sources of funding, other funding, and if funding becomes available to us through a team, we will ensure that the projects will be accelerated where possible to allow us to do that. So I can give you that assurance.
Yeah, that's the key thing about it, is that the LDP can inoculate, if a local group, a local organisation work with the council and the partners, they can bring in other money, more money from outside organisations, grant bodies like the lottery and all that, to increase the amount of money that we've got to spend in the area. So working with the groups would be a great asset. Heather?
Thanks, Chair. I think on a similar vein, you know, the community groups across Kilsyth and villages have been very good at using the LDP funding, the local development programme funding, as a catalyst to secure other resource to match fund against and such like. But I think one of the things we need to be clear about is we are the smallest population town board, yet our ambition matches that of the biggest town board of the authority. So any work and actions that we can undertake as a board or officers or whatever, I'm sure will take place, and it's just to say more power to our elbow here. And I think we need to make sure that we do try and increase that pot, because there are a number of projects that are in the LDP list that would outspend the value of our annual fund in its entirety year on year on year. So we really need to grow that fund and not be disadvantaged by the geography and the size of our population. I think our LOIP information tells of the challenge of our authority, but there isn't, like other things that are based on SIMD, is that rurality and mixed geography of an area isn't taking cognizance of. We can make the arguments about the difficulty to engage in the wider services of North Lanarkshire because our transport north to south is poor, nigh on negligible. Our infrastructure is to east and west. So I think it's on arguments like that we need to all together pull on establishing more resource for Kilsyth and Villages Community Board. Our aspiration and ambition deserves it, but so does the challenge and the poverty that is located within our communities too.
Thank you, Heather. Yes, I agree with what you said there, Heather. We might be a small community, but we punch well above our weight. Right, if there's nothing more on that, there's no petitions. Item 8, Community Concordat. Who's going to speak to that from Vanel?
Chair, it's Ian Johnson, I think, is on the call.
Hello.
All right. Hi, Ian.
Nice to meet you all. So to provide a bit of an update on the Community Concordat, a lot of you might be wondering what this even is. Essentially, the North Lanarkshire Partnership has agreed to collaboratively develop, agree and implement how North Lanarkshire stakeholders can kind of come together, share our values and approach empowerment and investment in local communities to improve well-being, equality and sustainability broadly. So to kind of go in a bit more detail as far as who the stakeholders are, it would be local residents, it is members of the community and voluntary sector, public bodies which serve North Lanarkshire itself, such as the council, the NHS, the police and Scottish Fire and Rescue, as well as businesses that serve North Lanarkshire. Once the community concordat has kind of been developed, and the reason or the way we're going to be doing this is we are currently hosting a survey which is open to everybody. I've just put that in the chat there. There's 2 more days on that remaining, so if you want to fill that out, we'd appreciate every single insight that we can get. Feel free to share that as far and wide as possible, as well as my email if you'd like to get in touch further. So we're going to collate data from the survey and hear as many viewpoints as possible. We're also looking to set up focus groups and workshops that will tackle various kind of topics and look into equality groups and key communities, such as unpaid carers, Black, Asian, minority and ethnic groups, LGBT+ groups, people with disabilities and long-term conditions, older adults, people from faith groups, people from low income and young people. Once this has all been agreed upon, essentially we will come together, finalise the agreement and see how we can work together to improve how we work together in North Lanarkshire. I know that's a lot of information. If there's any questions, happy enough to take them.
Thank you very much, Ian. Any questions to Ian on the concordat? I know it's new to everybody, but I'm sure that people will begin to understand it more and more as time goes on. Right. Thank you very much, Ian, for that. And we'll certainly have a look at the survey that you've put up.
No problem.
That may well disappear off people's screens, but it is on the Vanel report that was attached to all the board papers. So you can, there's a link in that report.
Perfect. Thank you.
Right. Item 9, any other competent business? Do we have any other items to raise? Nothing? Right. I would just say that in discussions with Christine earlier on, what we're looking at is trying to get face-to-face meetings up and running for the board. And hopefully by the time the next board comes round, it will be a hybrid meeting where we can meet face-to-face, but those who don't want to get face-to-face can still come in on on their computers or phones. Heather.
Just a bit of local news. Kilsyth Civic Week starts on a Saturday and will run for the next 8 days. There's a range of community events taking place, of course, starting with Civic Day, our big town parade and a fun day at Burn Green. And it's just to let folk know that it's on, and hopefully you'll engage and participate across the course of it. And we're having a series of pop-up concerts in the bandstand over the course of the week with lots of different activities, dance and music as well. So it'd be great to see people, you know, just joining in where they can. It's for wee people to older people and everything in between. So hopefully you'll get involved, and it's a wonderful community partnership. And I know a number of folk on screen are contributing time, efforts, talents and other things over the way, but it'd just be great to see folk over that time. And hallelujah, hopefully we're beyond our COVID situation, which allows us to meet again. So I look forward to seeing you all soon.
Thanks, Heather. We just need a nice day for it again.
I should have said that. We've got a tradition in Civic Week that says that if you've got a St Teresa statue, please turn her to face the street, because apparently that brings the sunshine. I don't know whether it does or it doesn't, but for the last 30 odd years it's been done and it's only failed us twice. So if you have any form of religious iconography or otherwise, please point it to wherever it should go, and hopefully just pray for sunshine and no rain dances. Thank you.
Heather, religion and politics is not part of this organisation.
That's what I said, or otherwise, just no
Or
rain dances.
otherwise. Robert, you've got your hand up.
Just a short question to Heather on the point of the pop-up concerts in the bandstand. Do we know what time they're scheduled to start at? And we might bring a couple of local youth groups along Tuesday or Wednesday of next week.
Fabulous. They're generally on in the evening. Jean, can you clarify the times that we've got for those that are in?
Well, we don't have a licence yet. All the concerts are still subject to licence. It's not been approved yet.
Oops.
So my concern is that Nicole needs to get her finger out between tonight and tomorrow and get a pat test in the bandstand to allow us to have our concerts. The licence is sitting up, signed and sealed, ready for a pat test certificate in the bandstand. So Nicole found her on. Most of them are on between 6:30 and 8:30, depending on the groups. But I can send you, watch the social media. They'll be listed on there, but I can send you over a list.
Thank you.
Nicole?
Just in response to Councillor Jones, whilst I have many and varied responsibilities, pat testing the bandstand I don't think is one of them. However, I will on the back of this go and speak to colleagues and make sure that the licensing is in place, because I would not wish for the concerts not to go ahead. So I will take that up on behalf of the board.
The remit is Parks Department for to instruct an officer. John Ty's sitting waiting to do it, waiting an instruction for the Parks Department.
Oh, left hand, right hand. We'll get it sorted.
Thanks, Nicole and Jean. Matt?
Just briefly, Chair, just on the point you raised about future meetings, we are in discussions with our IT support and trying to identify solutions to go back into local communities to hold our community board meetings on a face-to-face basis. But at the same time, we don't want to lose the opportunity we've had to have like this approach and give people the opportunity to come through an online basis and have an opportunity to do that. So we're looking at how we can do that solution in a community setting. When it's easy enough to do it, for example, in the civic centre, where you're doing it in the council chamber, that can be done on that basis, but it's difficult and challenging in some cases to do it in the local communities when you're doing it on with portable equipment, etc. But we are looking at that just now to try and identify solutions, because it's a kind of three-way approach to that now, because we've got people who might want to continue to attend the meetings through an online forum, ones who want to attend face-to-face, and those who may want to just view the meeting, as some people do, like through YouTube, for example. So it's a three-pronged thing that we want to look at, and we don't want to lose any of that, because it has widened support. Just to give you an example, in terms of the number of people who have viewed the cycles of community boards, it's almost 1,000 people view the cycles of community boards when they're out. So it does give people further opportunities to do that. So we don't want to lose that going forward, but we'll keep the board informed as we develop, hopefully, potential solutions to doing that.
Absolutely, Matt. We have to obviously keep the hybrid element as well, and give anybody who wants to attend the best facilities for them to attend and participate. Yep. Thanks very much. Oh, Heather?
It's a question regarding home care, because just when I see that Karen's on screen as well, it's just previously there had been some recruitment issues and response time issues, and I just wondered if there was any update. I think that was potentially 2 boards ago. It was just to get the opportunity to hear what the picture is at the moment.
Yeah, sure, Heather. So things had progressed quite significantly. There was a recruitment drive, and the waiting times had reduced massively. So things were going in the right direction. However, more recently, we've experienced quite significant staffing issues again. There's been a number of staff taking up opportunities in other local authorities and moving on. So we are experiencing within the Cumbernauld environment some quite challenging times at the minute, Heather. So we're looking for ways again to try and ease up like the hospital discharges and various things like that to make sure that we don't end up in the same bottleneck we previously did. I was speaking to the home sport manager today just to look at our stats and how we're sitting, and the team are working incredibly hard to try and make sure that we don't end up in that position again. So things aren't quite as good as they were, but we're hopeful it's a short-term issue and that we can overcome that. We do have a further recruitment drive out again, so we're just hopeful that we get a good response to that, but I'm happy to keep you updated on that.
Thanks very much, because I think that's something that comes up regularly. I'm sure elected members are astute to that, but I think a lot of community board members, you've got, you know, vulnerable members of your family that you're desperate to get home and supported, and it's through your team that gives us that. So it's appreciated to get that update, while it's maybe been from a couple of boards ago. I think it's important that we still get that. I think, and Bill, also on the papers that came in prior to the meeting, I think particularly I found the health update exceptionally well informed this time. Usually, I mean, we can have at times where health input is negligible at the meetings, but at least the paper gave us some detail about what the health improvement and health promotion actions actually are for this community, which make them tangible for us to be able to ask questions on, rather than just getting updates saying, you know, connecting to Scottish Government priorities. That tells us nothing about what's happening locally, whereas the paperwork that supported this meeting actually did. And I know that that was a plea that came from this meeting previously, so thanks for that.
Yeah, that was a big difference. I did see that myself and appreciated that myself. Very good. Right, any other questions or any other matters? Nope. Right, well, that's good. That's not bad, actually. 7:48. Thank you all for attending, and hopefully we will see you at the next board meeting, which should be around the September period. But we'll all communicate in between that time period. So have a, well, I was going to say have a safe journey home, but you're all at home. Right. See you later. Bye. Bye.